How's it going, everybody? My name is Philip, and today I'm going to be reacting to something a little bit different that's interesting to me. Today, as you can tell by the title, I'm reacting to a video called An AFL Team Based in the USA. It Nearly Happened. Now, it looked like they were going to be called the Los Angeles Crocodiles. That's what the thumbnail showed, at least. I have no idea. Obviously, we have the USAFL now here in the States, but I'm not really sure what to expect. Like, it doesn't really make much sense to me. Like, unless they're trying to bring the sport here, then, like, I'm trying to understand, because, like, okay, for one, where are they going to play at? Because all of our stadiums, even if they are round, the field portion is all the same. Like, you might be able to widen it a little bit, maybe make it a little bit longer, but it's not round at all, or it's not even an oval shape. So it's like, how are you gonna play? Like, I'm having a hard time. Like, where are they gonna play? Because they're gonna need to build a specific stadium so that an AFL team can actually be based in whatever city they choose. You know? But, I mean, it definitely would make sense if they're trying to bring the game here. But it just... Because since... From what it said, LA... From LA all the way to fucking Australia... That's however many hour flight. I don't think people are going to want that. Unless they're doing half a season here, half a season there. Then the people in Australia are getting screwed. Because now they can't really watch their team. They're going to have to record it half the time. Because... Like I've said, I've found the next two final games here in the U.S. I found them on ESPN. The problem with that is when you guys are playing them, or when they are playing in Australia, it's gonna be 2:30 in the morning here. So, like, in order to have a decent time for Australians, like, is it gonna be like really early in the morning? Like, if we play here at noon, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever, like, it's going to be really early in Australia. And I know a lot of people would do it, but it's just, I don't fully understand. Maybe this is exactly why it didn't work, because of the time difference or something. I don't know, but I'm interested to see how it nearly happened. It's just, I don't know. So let's see what happens. Let's see why it didn't work, or what they were talking about,
The 80s were a wild time for the then Victorian Football League. National expansion got underway in 1982 when South Melbourne moved north to Sydney, while the inclusion of the Brisbane Bears and Perth's West Coast Eagles in 1987 pushed the league to new corners of the country. For the first time in 62 years, the 12-team VFL had a new look.
Okay, see, but this is what I'm talking about. We don't have stadiums that would fit that. So we would literally have to build our own stadiums. Because I've watched a couple, I've looked up a couple of the USAFL, and I've seen the women's, a couple of the women's games. And they're literally playing on what looks like in a park. I mean, the camera angle is not the best, but it just literally looks like they're playing in a park. Because no stadium here in the States can hold them. And it sucks. It truly sucks. So that's sorry for let's get back into it.
While the glamour of the interstate invaders caught the eye of a new breed of supporter, back in Melbourne, footy's heartland, many traditional clubs were doing it tough and close to bankruptcy. Behind closed doors, a radical plan hatched by a West Australian property developer to relocate a struggling Victorian club made it all the way to the desk of the league chairman. Base a team in America, split their games between the US and Australia, and watch the crowds flock as the game grows to a worldwide phenomenon. This is the story of Los Angeles Crocodiles.
That's definitely interesting. See, look, that's how all of our stadiums are. They'd have to
The year is
change
1987.
it.
Alan Aylett, former North Melbourne champion and VFL chairman, was working behind the scenes of the league, consulting on potential relocations and mergers. He had experience. Aylett was a key figure in South Melbourne's move to Sydney ahead of the 1982 season, and his marketing and promotional nous helped the league flourish throughout his tenure at the top. But many Victorian clubs were now in dire financial straits, and so Aylett was quietly tasked with finding a solution. He visited Perth property tycoon Errol Marin, a retail developer and executive with Claremont Football Club, and asked whether he could mastermind a plan to relocate one of 6 Victorian clubs to Canberra. Marin had bigger dreams. Months later, Aylett was presented with, strongly backed, a proposal for a VFL team in Los Angeles. When Marin initially waved away the idea of a team in Canberra, he and his staff explored international options closer to home: New Zealand, Singapore, China, and Japan.
I will say, due to geographical, LA, cool, yeah, it will make the sport bigger. But, New Zealand, LA, Singapore, that would make more sense. I don't know how good it will do there or whatnot, but it would make more sense to do somewhere that's somewhat close. Because here, U.S., the MLS is primarily USA and Canada. Canada's right above the U.S., Mexico's right below. So if there's a merger that happens, it's relatively in the same area. But Australia, U.S., that's kind of that's a bit much.
Were all considered as potential relocation options for a Melbourne club. But only the United States had the broad appeal to which Marin believed his plan would truly work. Australian culture was a fascinating novelty to Americans in the 1980s, and with his new team, Marin knew the perfect way to capitalise on it. Paul Hogan was inescapable on TV. Crocodile Dundee was the highest grossing non-American film of the US box office ever, and Aussie Rules football had a cult late night following on ESPN. The Los Angeles Crocodiles would, according to Marin's proposal, allow Americans to instantly identify with Australia and arouse their interest to inquire further. The club would retain its original colours, but redesign the Guernseys to appeal to a new market. The Australiana theme would be reinforced off-field, with players encouraged to wear Akubra hats and other stereotypical items of clothing.
I have to say, 70s, 80s, racism was... It just feels... because now everyone's like, oh, that's racist. Everyone's more woke or whatever. Like, I feel like that totally would have worked. I don't like the fact that it totally would have worked, but it totally would have worked. It's like, oh, and then Americans would be like, oh, you're from down under, and they do the typical shitty, Americanized bad, whether it's English or Australian, because Americans at the time still probably don't recognize the difference. Like, oh, you're a British man. Oh, hello, give me a bottle of water. They do shit like that. It's like, oh, you're from Australia. And it's like, that's the same accent. You dumb fuck. And that's why we're seen as fucking asshole idiots over here in the U.S. Because we just do shit like that. We say shit like that, and people are just like, seriously? That's how we sound to you, American? Okay, fuck off, dumbasses. Sorry, let's continue.
The squad would initially be made up of players based in Melbourne who had grown up with the game, with a preference to younger, single players, so that relocation would be less disruptive to a family. But the proposal had a view to making the club self-sufficient within half a decade. 20 players would be employed by the Crocodiles to start up a training camp for American prospects and promote the game in LA. This would coincide with the introduction of a local Aussie Rules League featuring 2 All-American teams, with scope to grow. Eventually, Marin's ambitious goal was that the Crocodiles would be made up of predominantly American players after just 5 seasons. This wasn't seen as an unrealistic goal, as it worked on the presumption that Aussie rules as a sport would boom across America as soon as the club was established.
Yeah.
And as such, there would be a large enough talent pool to draw from by that time.
Yeah, I could see that happening if it actually worked, though. That's the problem. Yeah, what about the
Marin's
stadiums?
idea of a suitable stadium was one that had a capacity of 25,000 to 30,000,
That's
with a
fair.
natural grass playing surface, established members areas and corporate boxes, and adequate lighting for night games. As matches would be played during the hot LA summer, nighttime starts were preferred for more temperate playing conditions.
Yeah.
No specific venues are mentioned, but Marin was in conversation with local universities and councils to find appropriate grounds. Marin was banking on an average of 20,000 fans attending each match in the first season, but predicted this would quickly rise. Hence, he had already begun discussions with representatives from 2 mega stadiums, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena and the Los Angeles Coliseum. These stadiums had seated capacities of 104,000 and 92,000 respectively, which Marin incredibly believed would be a requirement for the Crocodiles within 5 seasons. Marin was also open to the Crocs playing one-off home games in San Francisco and or Seattle. When back in
Okay.
Australia playing away games, the team would train and locate its headquarters at its previous suburban home ground.
See, the problem with that though is they'd have to actually fix it. You know, they'd have to change the stadium so that it could be able to fit an actual field. Even if they
Proposal
do
was
San
to state
Francisco
that
and
travel
Seattle
was
as
now an
well.
accepted part of the game, given that the league had gone national and teams flew to Sydney, Brisbane or Perth every week. I guess they were trying to soften the blow of a 14-hour flight from Melbourne to LA. Marin had orchestrated a deal with Continental Airlines, who would not only sponsor and service the team, but would also negotiate international fares at favourable prices. Regardless, this would be no ordinary fixture. In a 22-round season, Marin proposed the Crocodiles host 8 matches in Los Angeles, play 12 matches in Melbourne, and visit Brisbane and Sydney once each. Perhaps he forgot about Perth. The matches played in Melbourne, most likely 9 away matches and 3 nominal home matches played at the relocated club's old home ground, would be completed in fortnightly blocks to reduce travel load on the players. 4 times a year, the Crocodiles would fly to Melbourne and play 3 games in a 2-week period. A standard Melbourne block of games might look something like this. The first game on a long weekend Monday, the second on a typical Saturday afternoon, and the third on a Friday night. They'd then return to LA, play a couple of Saturday night home games in succession, and then fly back to Australia and do it all again. To maximise TV viewership in Oz, start times would be optimised for that purpose. For instance, an 8 PM Saturday night match in LA would be broadcast live into Melbourne at 1 PM on a Sunday afternoon. Perfect.
Yeah. That seems fair.
The goal of introducing the Crocodiles was not only to cement the sport within America and make Aussie rules truly international, but also to rescue a struggling Melbourne club from bankruptcy. By agreeing to relocate to LA, the club would have their debts wiped, local membership retained, and be offered a fresh start in front of potentially millions of eyeballs.
That's a
A
great.
detailed financial analysis is provided in the proposal that gives an itemised breakdown of the club's potential income and outgoing costs. You can take a better look at it by pausing the video here.
Okay. The problem is though, this is expecting like what? How many did he say sellouts? That's the problem. Because my brother and I, we've talked recently. He bought the video game, the AFL Evolution 2. He tried playing it, didn't understand it at all. So he stopped playing the game, which is kind of sad because it's a fun game. Especially this sport is actually a lot of fun. Like like I said, I think I said in the past, I've been watching a lot of previous games on YouTube. I've been having a lot of fun watching it, you know? So they would really have to be in the community trying to teach people how to play this sport. Because otherwise they're going to go to this and it's like, wait, why is that? What? I don't understand. And a lot of them are probably just going to give up. Yeah, it was a cool experience. I don't know if I'd ever go back. I didn't quite understand it. and then you know, you lose people. You don't get people in the stadiums anymore. That's the big thing. Is like once we don't like if. And I don't know how it was in the 70s, 80s, but yeah. See, and that was my big reason for not getting into rugby, because I always thought it was this big brutal sport. Watching it now, I'm just like, it's a lot of fun to watch. It's very physical. It's not as brutal as I thought. Maybe in the 80s, 70s, and 80s and whatnot. But like, we don't give it a chance half the time. We stick to what we know, you know, and that seems to be the biggest problem.
Some of the high-level takeaways include the Crocodiles banking on at least 5,000 paid-up members in Season 1,
That's a rough one.
budgeting for a gross profit of $79,000 US per home game, and distributing that profit as a 40, 35, 25 split between the Crocs themselves, the visiting VFL club, and the expansion of football in the US. Between this philanthropy and the vision of operating a fully functional Aussie Rules League in LA, one can genuinely appreciate that this proposal was about more than just lining the pockets of the board members. There was a want to expand the game as a whole.
I respect
Speaking
that,
of the board,
though.
this sort of info isn't as exciting, but basically, it would have consisted of 7 members, 2 from the existing relocated Melbourne club, 2 from LA, 2 from Marin Property Group, and Errol Marin himself as chairman with casting vote. Marin appeared so confident in the likelihood of the Crocodiles' bid being accepted that he had already opened up an office space on the Avenue of the Stars in Beverly Hills, LA. The Crocs would request an increase to the salary cap due to the higher cost of living in the US, a large slice of the TV broadcast rights pie, and reciprocal membership with the local gridiron or baseball club. In return, any prize money won would be invested directly back into the education of Aussie rules football in America.
Nice.
The proposal doesn't mention any specific VFL club, only going as far as to say that the Crocodiles had discussions with VFL clubs who have expressed strong interest in our proposal. When the Herald Sun revisited the proposal in 2017, it named Fitzroy and Footscray as the two most likely candidates to have taken up the offer, as both had crippling debts at the time. This theory is given further weight as the short-lived Fitzroy Bulldogs merger took place in 1989, just 2 years after the Los Angeles proposal.
Okay.
Marin wished for the relocated Melbourne team to be playing in Los Angeles for the start of the 1988 VFL season. This was a quick turnaround, but entirely feasible according to Marin, who would later recall, "We put quite a few things in place to make it realistic, and if they, the VFL, had pressed the button, we would have had infrastructure in place to jump on straight away." Marin was ready to announce the proposal at a press conference in mid-September 1987 with the backing of an enthusiastic Aylett. However, League Chairman Ross Oakley requested he hold off until after the grand final, so as not to take the focus off the big couple of weeks of footy still left to be played that season.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately for Marin, whispers of the proposal started to leak to the media, much to the horror of Oakley, and this may have contributed to the head honcho going cold on the idea. Marin eventually announced the multi-million-dollar proposal on the Wednesday after the grand final, but Oakley promptly knocked the idea on the head just as quickly, and the only remnant is a note in the league's minutes for their October 1987 board meeting, where it was unanimously rejected.
Damn. Tell me. I would love to know why it failed.
The major train of thought as to why the Crocodiles' bid failed is
travel?
quite simply travel time. The AFL have barely committed to the idea of playing just one game overseas, let alone basing an entire team there. Yes, there have been exhibition matches, pre-season matches, and St Kilda's brief foray into New Zealand, but jet lag and travel hangovers have always been raised as excuses for their non-continuation. The Eagles and Dockers have to travel up to 8 hours every second week as a part of the national competition. For the Crocodiles, you would have tripled that, and then added on a little more. Australian footy just wasn't ready for that yet, and probably still isn't. In the Herald Sun's 2017 retrospective, Marin says that it was the bailout money eventually provided by the VFL to the struggling Melbourne clubs that took the pressure off any potential relocations or mergers. Syndicates behind the Brisbane Bears and West Coast Eagles paid $8 million in licence fees to join the competition, and this was distributed to the poorer teams. Marin was confident that Aylett, in his consulting, had the backing of the VFL to seriously consider his proposal, but lamented that it was just a little bit big for them. Oakley supported the travel theory as its major downfall, but also a lack of star power and recognisability. Sure, the Crocodiles was a catchy name, but it wasn't going to be Paul Hogan running out on the field and kicking goals. You've got the problem of, who the hell are these Australian rules footballers in this massive town? Oakley said in 2017. To be noticed in a market like that, you'd have to have an American billionaire who's prepared to say, "I love this game and I'm going to throw money at it."
That's definitely a fair quote, I guess.
Could an overseas AFL team ever happen? Maybe, but it's unlikely, particularly not now, with the massive financial blow that the league and its clubs have taken due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But even before this year, any talk of expansion was still only about new markets like Tasmania and the Northern Territory, or additional teams in cities such as Brisbane, Sydney and Perth. There is also the issue of Australian rules football still being an insular sport, only recognised in the international mainstream on rare occasions. The key players in the Crocodiles proposal, unsurprisingly, share an opposing view. Aylett told the Herald Sun in 2017 that he thought it was a bold idea and it's still a bold idea, while Marin said that for somebody to pick up a team and run on our concept would be the way to go. These days, they are bringing Americans to Australia to play AFL football. We plan to introduce it and build it up and recruit a few local people, Marin said. It wasn't a lot different to what happened in Sydney or Brisbane. They built it up and did a good job, and we were going to do the same. While AFL footy in Los Angeles may now be consigned to a footnote on the minutes of a board meeting, it's worthwhile remembering the giant proposal that made it all the way from a Perth property tycoon to the desk of the league champion.
It's definitely interesting. That's actually really interesting. I kind of figured it would be the travel time, and I also kind of figured the stadiums would have a big problem with it because, like I've said earlier, our stadiums aren't built for a big oval of a field. You know, you'd have to take away however much seating on the end zone, but not the end zone, but basically like the 50-yard line and whatnot. You'd have to take that, spread it out quite a bit, push it back or whatever, and we just wouldn't have enough space. Because I've even noticed that people, I'm sure someone could bring up the fact of, oh, what about the baseball fields? You know, those are roundish. You know, you could. That wouldn't work because we've had soccer games in a baseball stadium, and it barely fit. It barely fit. So that wouldn't work. It would just be one of those things where they'd have to build a whole new stadium. And if they're fine with that, then that's fine. And it's 100% fair that they would need a billionaire that wants to throw their money into putting something like this on. They would need someone that's like, okay, I love the sport. I'm invested. I want to do this. You know? And honestly, Hawaii might be a better option than LA. Just saying, because it's a 3-hour flight from California to Hawaii, so that means that will cut the flying time by at least 3 hours. I mean, but and I don't even know how well it would do there. I don't know if there's a team there actually. I'm sure that there might be a team in Hawaii, or because I know that there's definitely a team in LA anyway, the US AFL. Yeah, let's look at clubs. Because I know that up here, there's one in San Francisco, and then that's like our big one. Yeah, oh, there is a team in Hawaii. Hawaii Eagles. The thing is, though, that looks a lot like the original. I know I'm not showing you guys, but I don't know what the Metro division is, but I mean, Hawaii Eagles. It's the same exact name as the Eagles in AFL, so that wouldn't work. You know, then there's the Orange County Giants, and then there's also Los Angeles Dragons or San Diego Lions. Vegas Gamblers. That seems very original. That seems like an easy thing to do. You know, so it's Sacramento Suns. Golden Gate Australian Football Club. There's no way that's the actual name. Golden Gate Ruse. Why is it... Okay, it's just... It's showing something different. The point is, like... The Iron Maidens have been kicking ass, though. So I've actually been... it's already too late. I think they already had their season, so I have to try again for next season if I want to get into it. But... You know, I'm just looking at this, and... There's just... Seeing how there's this many teams, if we can get this actually take off, if this could actually take off here in the U.S., that would be fantastic. You know, we need someone to actually, like, decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to put money into this. You know, like, we need that. I think, honestly, that's the problem, though. You need that in every sport. And so, since there's so many sports, you're just like, I don't know if I want to... I don't know if I want to really put my money into it, blah, blah, blah. And that's always the problem. They'd rather not lose their money, because then they're screwed. Anyways, that was definitely interesting. It was definitely interesting, very well made. I do think that was really cool. Let me know if there's any other stories, whether it's AFL, rugby, Gaelic football, or just soccer, football type of... I love to look at these stories and just see. That would be interesting. And I think that if the VFL was actually able to, or AFL now, if they were actually able to get that done, I would have hoped that the league, or not necessarily the league, but the sport in general would be huge here. You know, I would have loved to grown up playing this sport. I'm just gonna say that soccer, this, at least those two, because I was always really small. Like I understand like 5'8" and whatnot. Like my height right now is like same as Faf de Klerk and Cheslin Colby in rugby, but growing up I was small. Like normally, let's say everyone else is like 5'5", I was like 4'11". I was a small kid, so I don't think rugby would have been my forte growing up. So this and soccer would have been my two things. And I know that they're a little bit taller as well and whatnot, but the kicking and the running, I would have loved it. Even if I couldn't make a team or anything, I would have loved it. I'm just saying. Okay, maybe I wasn't 4'11", maybe I was like 5'1", maybe. I don't know. Point is, I was small. I just think that it would be cool to be able to have grown up playing this sport. It looks fun. I would love to play it. I'm gonna have to get in the shape so that I can try out for San Francisco, or I guess there's a San Jose team. I could try San Jose. Not gonna lie. I'd be down. I'd be totally down to do the San Jose team. Granted, it's a metro. I don't know what the difference between metro and the men's. Oh, there's Oakland. I could do Oakland. I don't know what team when it says team type. I don't know what metro means. So I will try and figure that out, I guess. I don't know, but let me know in the comment section below what else I should react to next. And thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the AFL. It's been a lot of fun. Subscribe for more content, and leave a like, rate, and let me know that you guys enjoy this video. And I will see you guys in the next coming videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.